taught at a very young age that when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade.
Get your lemonade!
Perhaps that's where Jane Poole got the idea to open this lemonade stand in Jefferson County, Colorado.
Get your lemonade!
Poole has lymphoblastic leukemia. She's selling lemonade to help her family pay for the chemotherapy.
All Emma wanted was to sell enough lemonade to help her parents pay for her chemo.
They put up a lemonade stand, but this is what makes this different. They weren't trying to make money to buy something for themselves. Our Tim Pamplin shows us how, even at such a young age, these little guys are giving back in a very big way.
But as Pope Francis walked by, what happened next changed her life forever. Emma's lemonade stand was everything to her. Barely 7 years old, she had been fighting leukemia for months. And when her parents struggled to keep up with the growing medical bills, she decided to do her bit about it. Sitting on a quiet street corner with a small table, a jug of lemonade, and a stack of paper cups, Emma called out to anyone passing by, her tiny voice full of determination. This particular day was on one of those warm and sunny days in Rome, when the streets buzzed with their usual energy. Tourists wandered with maps in hand, vendors pushed carts of fresh fruit, and street performers entertained crowds in the piazzas. Somewhere amidst the hum of daily life, a man in simple white robes walked with a quiet purpose. Though many wouldn't notice him at first glance, his face was one that millions recognized: Pope Francis. Keep watching. What happened next left everyone speechless. Pope Francis was known for his spontaneous walks through the streets, often leaving the Vatican's luxury behind to connect with the everyday lives of people. These unannounced outings were where he found the stories that moved him most. But what he found that afternoon was more than just a story. As he turned down a narrow street, his eyes landed on Emma's little stand. The bright handwritten sign caught his attention. "Buy lemonade. Help me fight cancer."
The brave 7-year-old girl from Alabama is now in Boston tonight for an operation to end her seizures.
Between the hospital costs, the travel, and the hotel, the family is facing some incredible expenses.
But it wasn't just the sign. It was the sight of Emma herself, with her pink headscarf and fragile frame, smiling bravely at every passerby, as if her life depended on it. Pope Francis paused, his heart stirring at the scene. He wasn't just a man of faith. He was someone deeply moved by the courage of others. And Emma's courage was impossible to ignore. The Pope approached the stand, his presence unassuming but magnetic. Emma looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had seen his face on TV and in her parents' church, but she never imagined meeting him in person. You're the Pope," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Yes," he said, smiling warmly. "And I'd like some lemonade, if you don't mind." Emma's hands trembled as she poured the drink. Her parents, standing a few feet away, watched in awe as the Pope, leader of millions, crouched down to talk to their daughter as though she were the most important person in the world. Pope Francis listened carefully as Emma explained her story, sharing how she wanted to help her family pay for her treatment. "They've done so much for me," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I just want to help them back." The Pope was moved. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small leather pouch. Inside was a medal of St. Peregrine, the patron saint of cancer patients, along with a few coins and a handwritten blessing. "This is for you," he said, "and for your strength." But it didn't end there. Francis turned to the small crowd that had gathered and asked them to support Emma. "She has more courage than many of us combined," he said. "Let's help her."
She plans to use the money to buy something special for her older brother, who's currently in the ICU. Local 12's Jenna Cisneros shows us how the community is showing up for this Independence family in a story you will see only here on Local 12 News.
What happened next would leave everyone stunned. Keep watching to find out. That moment marked the beginning of something much bigger than Emma could have dreamed. She didn't fully understand what had just happened. She clutched the small leather pouch Pope Francis had given her, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and disbelief. The Pope had not only stopped to buy her lemonade, but had also spoken words that made her feel stronger than she had in months. As he stood beside her stand, more and more people began to gather. Phones were out, capturing the moment, and whispers filled the air. Pope Francis, known for his humility and ability to connect with people from all walks of life, wasn't one to shy away from the spotlight when it came to helping others. He turned to the growing crowd, gesturing gently toward Emma. "This little girl is an example of courage and faith," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She reminds us all that even in our hardest moments, hope can be a powerful thing." The crowd responded instantly. A middle-aged woman stepped forward, placing a few euros in Emma's donation jar. Then came a man with a camera slung over his shoulder, dropping in a bill and buying a cup of lemonade.
We just can't imagine what the Fossil family's going through, and we were just trying to think of something that the kids could get involved with, and to let Caroline, Fossil, Luke's mom, know that we're thinking of them.
It's not what's in this blue cup, but the thought behind it that matters.
Within minutes, a steady line had formed in front of Emma's stand, each person eager to contribute to her cause. Emma's parents, watching from a few steps away, exchanged glances, their eyes brimming with gratitude. They had supported Emma's idea, but they never imagined something like this would happen. As the line grew longer, Pope Francis stayed by Emma's side. He didn't just buy lemonade, he poured it for others, serving drinks with the same care and attention he brought to everything he did. His presence was a statement of solidarity with a little girl who was fighting for her life. What happened next took the day to a whole new level. Among the crowd was a journalist from a local newspaper. She had been wandering the streets, looking for a light-hearted story to cover, when she spotted the commotion. Recognizing the Pope, she immediately began snapping photos and taking notes. "Who is the girl?" she asked Emma's parents, her curiosity piqued. "Her name is Emma," her mother said, her voice trembling slightly. "She's selling lemonade to help us pay for her cancer treatment." The journalist's heart sank and soared all at once. She knew this wasn't just a story about the Pope stopping by a lemonade stand. It was about a child's unyielding spirit and a community rallying around her. Within hours, the photos and story were online, spreading across social media platforms faster than anyone could have anticipated. Meanwhile, back at the lemonade stand, something even more remarkable was happening. A man in a suit approached, standing out among the casually dressed crowd. He introduced himself as a representative of a local charity organization that supported families dealing with pediatric cancer. "We'd like to help," he said, addressing Emma's parents directly. "Your story is inspiring, and we want to make sure you don't have to face this battle alone." Emma's mother, overwhelmed, could barely find the words to respond. "Thank you," she managed to say, tears streaming down her face. The representative handed them a business card and promised to follow up with financial assistance and resources. Emma, watching the exchange, didn't fully grasp the weight of what was happening, but she felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope. As the day turned into evening, the crowd began to thin, but the impact of those few hours would last far beyond the sunset. Pope Francis stayed until Emma's lemonade jug was empty, helping her pack up and offering a prayer for her health and her family's strength. Before leaving, he leaned down and whispered something to Emma. No one else could hear, but whatever he said made her smile in a way that lit up her tired face. By the time Emma and her family returned home, their phones were buzzing non-stop. Friends, relatives, and even strangers were calling and messaging, sharing links to the story that had gone viral. In the days that followed, Emma's story continued to spread. Donations poured in from all over the world, some small, others shockingly large. Letters and cards arrived by the dozens, filled with words of encouragement and love from people who had been touched by her story. But it wasn't just money and letters. Offers of help came from unexpected places. A local hospital reached out, offering to cover part of Emma's treatment costs. A well-known musician, moved by her story, announced a benefit concert in her honor. Even a popular children's author promised to write a book inspired by Emma's bravery, with proceeds going to her medical fund. Emma's parents were overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. They had spent months feeling helpless, watching their daughter endure the pain and exhaustion of cancer treatment while struggling to keep up with the bills. Now, for the first time, they felt like they could breathe again. Through it all, Emma remained the same sweet, determined little girl. She didn't fully understand the magnitude of what was happening, but she loved hearing her parents read the letters aloud and seeing the colorful drawings other children had sent her. "Are all these people my friends now?" she asked one evening, her voice filled with wonder. Her mother smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. "Yes, sweetheart," she said. "You have more friends than you could ever imagine." And while Emma's story was touching hearts around the globe, Pope Francis continued to use it as a reminder in his sermons and speeches. He spoke about her courage, her willingness to fight not just for herself but for her family, and the incredible power of community. But this wasn't just about Emma anymore. Her story became a spark that ignited kindness and generosity in people who hadn't thought to act before. Lemonade stands popped up in other cities, inspired by Emma's example, with children raising money for various causes. Families who had felt alone in their struggles found hope in the way the world had come together for a little girl with a big heart. The ripple effect was undeniable, and it all began with a jug of lemonade, a small pink headscarf, and the unexpected kindness of a man in white robes. And yet the most extraordinary part of the story was still to come. Keep watching to find out. Emma's life had changed overnight. What began as a humble lemonade stand on a quiet street in Rome had turned into a global phenomenon. But while Emma and her family were overwhelmed with gratitude, they were also adjusting to their new reality. One filled with media attention, public support, and the hope of a brighter future. Yet amidst all this, Emma still had one battle left to fight: her health. Leukemia was a relentless opponent, and while the financial burden had been eased, the physical and emotional toll of the disease was something Emma and her family faced daily. Her doctors remained cautious, reminding her parents that while the support was incredible, Emma's treatment plan was still a long road ahead. Despite everything, Emma didn't let her illness define her. She woke up each day with a smile, determined to enjoy the moments that mattered most. And in the weeks following her encounter with Pope Francis, those moments became more abundant. Her parents made sure she spent time outdoors, playing with her younger brother, Luca, and enjoying the simple joys of childhood that had been stolen from her for so long. But something remarkable was happening behind the scenes. One of the most unexpected gestures came from Pope Francis himself. Francis had followed Emma's journey closely since the day they met. He had an idea that would not only help Emma, but inspire countless others. One morning, Emma's parents received an unexpected phone call. It was from an official at the Vatican, informing them that Pope Francis had arranged for Emma to visit him at St. Peter's Basilica. The invitation wasn't just a formality. It was a deeply personal gesture. He wanted to spend time with Emma and her family, to pray with them, and to show them the love and support of the Church. Emma's parents were stunned. "Are you sure?" her father asked. his voice thick with emotion. Why would he do this for us? The answer was simple. Because that's who Pope Francis was. Known for his humility and compassion, he often went out of his way to connect with people who were suffering. For him, Emma wasn't just a story. She was a reminder of why he dedicated his life to serving others. When the day of the visit arrived, Emma was brimming with excitement. She wore a new dress, a gift from one of the many supporters who had heard her story, and carried the little leather pouch the Pope had given her weeks earlier. As her family approached the Vatican, they were met with a sense of awe. The grandeur of St. Peter's Square was overwhelming, but what struck them most was the warmth of the people who greeted them. Pope Francis met them in a private garden within the Vatican. He knelt down to Emma's level, greeting her with the same gentle smile that had captured the world's attention. "Emma," he said softly, "how is my little friend doing?" Emma grinned, her shyness fading as she showed him the pouch he had given her. "I kept it safe," she said proudly. The Pope spent the afternoon with Emma and her family, sharing stories, offering prayers, and even laughing at Luca's antics as the little boy darted around the garden. But the most moving moment came when Francis led them into a small chapel for a private blessing. As they knelt together, he placed his hands gently on Emma's head, praying not just for her healing, but for her strength and the resilience of her family. The room was silent except for his voice, and everyone felt a sense of peace that was almost tangible. When the visit ended, the Pope handed Emma a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, along with another medal, this one of San Raphael, the archangel associated with healing. "You've inspired so many people," he told her, "and I believe you'll continue to do so." The visit was a turning point for Emma and her family. It wasn't just the honor of meeting the Pope again, or the kindness he had shown them. It was the realization that their story had a purpose beyond their own struggles. The story didn't stop there. Inspired by Pope Francis's involvement, international organizations began to take notice. One major pharmaceutical company offered to provide Emma's medication free of charge, while another pledged to fund research into pediatric leukemia. Schools used her story as a lesson in compassion and resilience, and churches around the world held special prayers for her recovery. Emma's lemonade stand had become a symbol of something far greater: the power of community, the impact of faith, and the strength of one little girl who refused to give up. But the most surprising development came a few months later. During a routine checkup, Emma's doctors noticed something unusual. Her latest tests showed significant improvement, far more than they had expected. While it was too early to call it a full recovery, the progress was undeniable. Her parents were cautious but hopeful, clinging to the possibility that their daughter's fight might finally be turning in her favor. When Pope Francis heard the news, he was overjoyed. He shared Emma's progress in a public address, using her story as a reminder of the miracles that can happen when people come together in love and faith. Emma's journey shows us that even in the darkest times, there is light, he said, and that light comes from each of us. The ripple effects of Emma's story continued to spread. More families found support, more children received treatment, and more people were inspired to make a difference in their communities. And through it all, Emma remained at the heart of it. A little girl with a big heart, who reminded the world of what truly matters. And as her health improved, Emma returned to her lemonade stand, this time not to raise money for herself, but for other children in need. With every cup she poured, she carried the blessings of Pope Francis, the prayers of strangers, and the hope that had carried her through. And little did she know, the most incredible part of her journey was yet to come. Months had passed since Emma's story first captured the world's attention. Her battle with leukemia was far from over. But her improved health and the love surrounding her gave her a strength that no illness could take away. Celebrities, influencers, and everyday people embraced the message that even the smallest act could make a big difference. But Emma's story didn't just inspire strangers, it changed her community in ways no one could have anticipated. For Emma, life had taken on a new rhythm. She spent her days between hospital visits, schoolwork, and time with her family. She had become somewhat of a local celebrity, though her parents made sure to keep her grounded. "You're still our little girl," her father would remind her, even as letters and gifts from around the world filled their home. One afternoon, as Emma sat on the porch with her mother, sipping lemonade from one of the brightly colored cups people had sent her, a familiar car pulled up to the curb. It was the representative from the charity organization that had offered their help months earlier. "We've got something special to show you," he said, smiling as he handed them an envelope. Inside was an invitation to an event in Rome, a gathering of families, supporters, and leaders who had been touched by Emma's story. And the guest of honor? Emma herself. When the day of the event arrived, Emma and her family were greeted with cheers and applause as they stepped onto the stage. The room was filled with people who had been inspired by her courage, and many were holding signs with messages like, "Emma, you're our hero," and "One cup at a time." As her parents spoke about the journey they had been on, Emma stood by their side, holding the St. Raphael medal Pope Francis had given her. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath, clutching the microphone with both hands. "I just wanted to help my family," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't know so many people would care, but I'm glad they did, because now we can help other kids too." Her words brought the crowd to their feet, and in that moment Emma understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the lives she had touched, the hope she had sparked, and the love that had come back to her in ways she could never have imagined. But the highlight of the evening came toward the end, when a video message from Pope Francis was played on a large screen. Sitting in his study, he spoke directly to Emma and her family. "Emma, your courage has reminded us all of the power of faith and kindness," he said. "You have shown the world that even in the face of great challenges, the human spirit can shine brighter than ever. May your light continue to guide and inspire us all." The room erupted in applause as Emma's face lit up with joy. Though she had met the Pope in person, hearing his words in that moment felt like a blessing all over again. As the event came to a close, Emma's parents reflected on how far they had come. They remembered the fear and uncertainty that had once consumed them, and now they stood in a room filled with love and support. Their daughter's journey had turned into a movement, and their family had become a beacon of hope for others. In the weeks that followed, Emma's health continued to improve. Her doctors were cautiously optimistic, and her family began to dream of a future where cancer was no longer a part of their lives. But even as they looked forward, they never forgot the lessons they had learned along the way. Emma's lemonade stand remained a constant presence in their lives, not as a symbol of struggle, but as a reminder of the power of community and compassion. Each time Emma set up her stand, she knew she wasn't just selling lemonade. She was sharing a piece of her heart, one cup at a time. Although her journey was filled with challenges, Emma knew she was never alone. From the Pope's gentle encouragement to the kindness of strangers, she carried the love of millions with her. And while the world moved on to new stories, her legacy remained. A little girl with a big heart who reminded everyone that sometimes hope comes in the simplest forms. What do you think about Emma's incredible journey? Do you believe small acts of kindness can truly change the world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.